bassline. Oh, wicked. I'll put a donk on it. Electro.
Hiya, welcome back. We're back on C1 video, and I'm going to try and rectify the obvious fault that you can see now. And also, while I'm here, I'm also going to try and sort this out a little bit, where some screw has tried to open the door without the correct key, evidently, and they have put a little bit of a crease in it, but the paint's not damaged, so in with the chance of making that look a bit better. But the main thing I'm going to focus on is the well, that. So if anyone watched recently, I did try one of the you know, the scratch pens, but I don't think it's going to work on something so, well, it's through the paint, isn't it? You know, it's actually a proper scratch. So I'm not even going to bother trying that. But this is one method, and this is, you know, if you've got a black car, then you know, this is bodywork. This is a body shop technique, you know, learnt by only the best. And just an example, look now, you can't see anything there, can you? I mean, that looks like brand new, whereas this is still fucked. But I'm also going to try a different method as well, which first requires the area to be cleaned. So I'll get some brake cleaner, and if you're American, that's a brake parts cleaner, and we'll give that a bit of a clean off. Let's give it another dose just for good luck. And as you can see, we have a scratch back exactly as it was. Right, so I've got a scratch, and before I'm going to start adding paint or anything, I am going to try and we'll try and use some of that super cut to get rid of what scratches we'll get rid of first. See, I suspect round here, well, you can all see my hand because it's so reflective. I suspect round here I might be able to get rid of some of that. So let's try that and then see what we are left with. So we'll give it a good, nice vigorous movements. And we'll do the full scratch, and then we will see where we are. Okay, so it appears that using polish, although might get rid of minor scratches, it doesn't really get rid of gouges. It's taking it a tiny bit off, which is as good as I could have hoped for, really. So that leaves us with only one option then, doesn't it? Apart from getting it painted properly, that leaves us with only one option. I'll be honest, I'm actually going to try and do this so it's better than any other of the bodywork videos I've done in the past, which have never turned out that well. I'm going to try and do this so it actually looks better than it did before I started. But we'll see, won't we? And that leads us to finding this plate. Now, this is a 5-door and it's on the driver's side rear door. And that number there, EXZ, is our paint code. So here's what I prepared earlier. I've got some touch-up paint, so we can touch it up. Sounds more fun than it's probably going to be. So let's see what it comes out like. And after some vigorous shaking, this is actually ready to apply. And what I'll show you is that when you take it out, this is where I spill it everywhere. Look at this. Right, when I take this out, it's actually got a little brush on it, which is great if you wanting to apply it to your nails. But if you actually wanting to put it on the scratch, it's quite clumsy, look. So it's not brilliant. So let's do away with that. Get some of our brake parts cleaner. Start again. this is where I find out it's really fast drying. Right, and even if we get rid of pretty much all the paint off this brush, there's still loads of paint on the brush, but we get rid of loads of the paint off it nice and carefully, and then we just dab the area in question. You don't really want to drag the brush across it, and what I'm aiming to do, see, look, too much has gone on. This is the problem that you're up against. So instead of using a brush, I always find it's easier to use a little flat blade screwdriver, and just take your time, just get rid of most of it, and see if you can see. Now this is me not talking, this is a sound of concentration. And as you can see, that is going well. Right, so my aim is to fill this scratch in with the touch-up paint. That's what I'm planning on doing. So that's what I'm going to do, because, well, it's not going to be too enthralling to watch the whole thing. So I'll come back when I've completed that task. And I'm about halfway along now, and it actually looks better than I thought it was going to. But don't worry, there's still some time for me to fuck it up yet. And ta-da! As I said I'd be, I'm back when I have painted the full thing. Now if I look at it from here, even with the naked eye, on that part I can't actually see where the scratch was. I can there, as you can see on the camera. But if I go down, like so, then the scratch becomes a lot less visible than it was before, but still not perfect. And we are aiming for perfection here. That is what we always strive for on Stupid Bloke Stupid videos. It's always striving for just perfection. So anyway, as you can clearly see, I have touched up, and by the time I got to about here, I got fed up of using the screwdriver, and I used the brush, which is why it's a little bit more blobby, but it'll do for what we want. Now there is a next step to this process, but I'm gonna have to leave it a bit. Well, for me it's gonna be overnight, for you it's gonna be a few seconds, and I will come back with the next step very shortly. But while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm gonna have a go at fixing this, and this is gonna be like paintless dint repair at its finest. And to start with, I want to be able to get to the back of this, which if you look at my other videos, I have taken one of these locks out before. Anyway, let's see what we can see. And to start with, I need to remove this. Now if you have got trim panel removal tools, then that's probably for the best, whereas I've just pulled it with my hands because I didn't have trim panel removal tools on me. So we need to take these screws out, and the electricity window switch. I'm not sure if I needed to remove that or not, but we have anyway. Take these screws out, pull this off. So let's take them out, and then hopefully this will just pull off then. So there's the 3 screws from there, and there. Put them in a safe place. And then, now this might not work, but I need to get my fingers behind there and give it a good tug, nice good tug. Now hopefully this will just pull off, which as you can see I've started taking it off at this location at the front of the door. And as we just work our way around, unplug our window switch, which should have something holding it in. If it doesn't, it just sort of pulls out. I'm expecting to see a tab on it. And this is much easier to take off than if you've got windy windows. If you've got electricity windows, it's much easier to take off because you don't have to take the, you have to struggle with this shitty winder. Right, so now that's lovely and located on the floor. And it's pulled this off because the door lock's going to be right behind there. So gently pull this off because I don't want to rip it. Yes. Try again. I gently pull this off. And as you can see, that went perfectly to plan. Anyway, this is our lock, which I've also shown in the other video, which I do want out of the way. So if I pull that out of the way, now, I don't know if you can tell, but this needs pivoting towards me to take the rod off. Can you see that? I'll have to get a screwdriver in there or something. But I've shown that already on a different video, so don't need to bore you with that shit. And now we've got the lock removed, we can get to both sides of the panel for some top quality PDR. Right, so as you can see, as you can't see, this is pulled out at the bottom and I need to push it back in, but I don't want to hit it, I don't want to dent it. So I'm not going to be able to film this because I need both hands, because I'm going to have to push it on one side and push it on the other side, basically sandwiching it between my hands, between the two hammers. Well, they're not hammers, they're soft mallets. You don't want to use hammers because then it's going to scratch it in it and then it's going to look even worse than what it does to start with. So let's see how I get on with my first attempt at paintless dent repair. Right, so here we are about 10 minutes later, and it's taken me about 10 minutes or so to realise I ain't got a fucking clue what I'm actually doing. But the lock now does fit much better. It's still out at the bottom, so I do need to tap it in on these little fingers a little bit, and then I'm just going to leave it at that and put it back together, I think. Right, so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, and I'm going to put it back together as it is, which, well, isn't too bad. So that, as you can see, clips back in there. This thingamajig just goes back in there, but pushed all the way in, like so. And then now, as you can see, I managed to do this without ripping it at all. So it'll go back together perfectly. And well, just put it back together, which means I have to nick it back off this little dog. And then once I've distracted him with the ball, I can plane it back. And a lot of it is just, we've got to put that needs to go through, and then there is them all the way around pretty much, and just, well, they just push in. So I mean, it's self-explanatory really. I'm going to push them in and then put the screws back in, and then I'm done. And the last part of the puzzle is to plug the electric window switch back in, which then just pushes into place like that. Right, so now it's all back together after having to take the panel off again because I forgot to connect the rod to the back of the lock. Anyway, now it's all back together, it's all working, the lock isn't loose, and you know what, for someone with no skill, experience or patience, it's actually turned out better than I thought it would. So I'm happy with that. On the other hand, this paint isn't going to be fully cured yet, so we've got to wait for that to dry. So we'll come to that after this workplace team building exercise. And that was the exact amount of time it took for the paint to cure properly. And as you can see, I can stroke this lovingly and it's not coming off. So this leads us to, do I just leave it as it is? Well, you can't really see it unless you know it's there or you're in the right light. But if I stand up, you can't actually see it. But there is, well, I can try and make it even better, but I'm probably going to make it worse. So I've got some 2000s grit wet and dry paper, some wet to put the wet and dry paper in, and as you can see by these perfectly executed computer graphics on screen now, this is what I'm going to try and achieve. So let's get some wet and dry, and we're using the wet bit of it, and I really want to be quite careful with this. Let's get some water on it first, right, and I want to be very gentle just to take the top off. Now, I don't want to go mad. I'm not putting any pressure on at all here. It's like no pressure. And I'm just going to try and take the high points off that paint. I need to concentrate on what I'm doing with that before I burn through it. So once I have done that, I shall give it a dry off. Yes. Right. As you can see, I've done that for the full duration of the scratch with the wet and dry, and I used 2000s on this, and it does look like I might have gone through the touch-up paint a little bit in a couple of places, unfortunately, but it did actually sand down better than I thought it was going to. I expected it to, well, I didn't expect it to, I thought there was a chance that it might have just pulled the paint off rather than sand it down. It did sand down quite well, you know, it's quite smooth to the touch now. You can't really feel the scratch as such. You can, but it's a lot better than it was. So now, obviously this is now dull, so unless you want a matte look, I need to polish it, don't I? And then when I'm polishing, the paint will probably pull out the crack and I'll be left at square one. And of course I'm going to do it anyway, and to make that more likely to happen, I'm going to use quite an aggressive polishing compound. Instead of doing it by hand, I'm going to use this that came with the, well, one of the headlights, part of the headlight kit. So I'm also going to keep it wet, you know, nice and cool, make sure it stays nice and cool, and just give it, well, you don't need me to do it, do you? I'm just going to give it some polishing motions. Yes. Right, and a couple of minutes of polishing. Let's give it a wipe off. Can't get my hand in my sleeve. Right, give it a wipe off. I'll try again with a rag. And as anticipated, I've probably actually made it slightly worse. Most places it's come out pretty good actually, but there is a tiny bit there where it wants a little bit more paint in it. So now I need to wash all this polish off and dab a bit more paint on. and then see how it turns out and see if I need to repeat the process. And when I say I need to wash the polish off, I mean I'm going to go to my favourite detailers. And the paint did actually survive going to the car wash. And on the whole, I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'm happy with it there, until I get to there, where I went through a tiny bit. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint to it, which you don't need to see because you already watched me do that. And then I'll see how it turns out and see if it needs further flattening off. I'm hoping it won't do because it's just a little bit, but I'm going to do that now anyway, and then we'll see what it looks like when we're finished. And I've just touched them in a little bit more, and I think it's probably about as good as I'm going to get it. I'm not going to flat it off again. That's where I've just added some more paint, as you can see clearly now it's focused. I'm not going to flatten it off again, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the polishing stage when it's dry, and I'm just going to give it a hand polish, and I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll see how it looks. Well, see how it looks then. And this is now it's dry. So, like I said, I'm going to give it a hand polish, and what I'm going to do is probably what I should have done in the first place before I did anything else, and just use some black scratch remover. And just toss it off with that. Oh, I think I put too much on. Quality rag. So I've got a high quality microfiber cloth, not an old sock or anything. And I think that's probably about as good as I'm going to get it. I think if I carry on messing about with it, I'm just going to make it worse again. Further away you get, better it gets. You know, from here, can't even see it. So I'd call that a great success. So I am going to leave it at that. Anyway, that's all for this one. Don't forget to check out my other videos. Comment, tell me how I could have done it better. Or subscribe if you feel that that's relevant. And also, I sent out a couple of stickers this week. So if you want one of them, I think I've got about 2 left. I don't think I'll need any more than that. So if you want one of them, just inbox me on the Facebook page or the Instagram page, and I'll send you one. But like I said, I've only got a couple left. Anyway, see you next time.